Welcome to our channel English Avenue. Today, we are going to talk about one of the biggest and most important topics in human life, the history of the world. This is not just a story about kings, wars, dates, and empires. This is the story of us, the story of human beings, how we began, how we survived, how we learned, how we built homes, villages, cities, kingdoms, and nations, how we discovered fire, how we created tools, how we learned farming, how we built civilizations, how we created languages, religions, laws, science, art, trade, and technology. World history is important because it helps us understand where we came from. And when we understand the past, we understand the present better. Why do countries exist? Why do people speak different languages? Why are there different cultures? Why do wars happen? Why do humans create, destroy, rebuild, and grow again? History gives us answers. It teaches us that human life has always been a journey of struggle and progress. People before us faced hunger, danger, disease, war, disasters, and fear. But they also created beauty, knowledge, family, music, cities, books, ideas, and hope. This video is important because when you learn world history, you do not only learn about the past, you learn about human nature. You learn about courage. You learn about mistakes. You learn about power. You learn about survival. You learn about change. You learn how the world became what it is today. This video will also help you improve your English. So listen carefully. Repeat useful sentences. Learn words like humanity, civilization, survival, farming, empire, culture, discovery, trade, power, and progress. Try to speak these sentences aloud. Because when you learn English through history, you improve your knowledge and your language at the same time. And if you want to improve your English with simple, powerful, and interesting lessons like this video, subscribe to the channel and keep learning with me. Now let us begin the journey. A journey from the very beginning. Chapter 1. The beginning of humanity and ancient civilizations. Before there were countries, cities, kings, schools, books, money, and technology, there was nature. There were forests, mountains, rivers, oceans, animals, storms, heat, cold. And slowly, on this planet, life developed. For a very long time, humans did not live like we live today. There were no houses like today, no phones, no roads, no electricity, no farms, no cities, no governments, no written books. Early humans had to survive in a dangerous world. They lived close to nature. They searched for food. They hunted animals. They collected fruits, roots, nuts, and plants. They moved from place to place. They had to protect themselves from wild animals, cold weather, hunger, and danger. Life was simple, but it was not easy. Every day was about survival. One of the most important things early humans created was tools. At first, they used stones, bones, and wood. They made sharp tools to cut meat, break things, hunt animals, and protect themselves. This may look very small today, but at that time, it was a huge step, because tools made humans stronger. A human body is not as strong as a lion. Humans do not have sharp teeth like wild animals. Humans cannot run as fast as many animals. But humans had something very powerful: the brain. Humans could think. Humans could plan. Humans could learn from mistakes. Humans could teach each other. This is what made humans different. Then came one of the greatest discoveries in human history: fire. Fire changed everything. With fire, humans could cook food. Cooked food was easier to eat and safer. Fire gave warmth in cold places. Fire gave light in darkness. Fire helped protect humans from wild animals. Fire also brought people together. Imagine early humans sitting around fire at night. Outside, there was darkness. There were animal sounds. There was danger. But around the fire, there was warmth, safety, and connection. Maybe this is where humans started telling stories. Maybe this is where family and community became stronger. Fire was not only a tool. Fire was a turning point. For thousands of years, humans lived as hunters and gatherers. This means they hunted animals and gathered food from nature. They moved from one place to another because food was not always available in one place. If animals moved, humans moved. If fruits and plants were finished, humans moved. This life required strength, teamwork, and knowledge of nature. People had to understand seasons. They had to understand animals. They had to understand plants. They had to understand danger. They learned by watching the world carefully. But then, another great change happened. Farming. This was one of the biggest revolutions in human history. Before farming, humans searched for food. After farming, humans started producing food. They learned to plant seeds. They learned to grow crops. They learned to keep animals. They learned that if they stayed near rivers and fertile land, they could grow food again and again. This changed human life completely. Because when people learned farming, they did not need to move all the time. They could stay in one place. They built permanent homes. Then small villages began. People started living together in larger groups. They grew wheat, rice, barley, and other crops. They kept animals like goats, sheep, cows, and pigs. They stored food for the future. This gave them more stability. But farming also created new problems. People needed land. They needed water. They needed protection. They needed rules. They needed leaders. They needed workers. They needed storage. They needed ways to solve disputes. Slowly, villages became bigger. Some villages became towns. Some towns became cities. And this is how ancient civilizations began. A civilization is a developed human society with cities, laws, government, writing, trade, religion, art, and organized life. The first great civilizations grew near rivers. Why rivers? Because rivers gave water. Rivers helped farming. Rivers helped transportation. Rivers made land fertile. Rivers gave life. That is why many ancient civilizations began near river valleys. One of the earliest civilizations was Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia was between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Today, this area is mostly in Iraq. The word Mesopotamia means land between rivers. People in Mesopotamia built some of the world's first cities. They created farming systems. They built temples. They developed trade. They created laws. They also developed one of the earliest forms of writing called cuneiform. Writing was a huge invention. Before writing, people had to remember everything. But with writing, humans could record laws, business, stories, history, and knowledge. Writing helped civilization grow. It allowed people to pass information from one generation to another. Another great ancient civilization was Egypt. Egypt grew near the Nile River. The Nile was extremely important. Every year, the Nile flooded and made the land fertile. Because of this, Egyptians could grow crops and build a strong society. Ancient Egypt became famous for pharaohs, pyramids, temples, mummies, and amazing architecture. The pyramids are still one of the greatest wonders of the ancient world. They show us how organized and skilled ancient Egyptians were. They had builders, engineers, workers, priests, artists, and rulers. They also had a writing system called hieroglyphics. Egypt was not only powerful, it was deeply spiritual. The Egyptians believed in life after death. This belief influenced their art, buildings, and traditions. Another important civilization was the Indus Valley Civilization. It developed near the Indus River in South Asia. Its famous cities included Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. This civilization is very interesting because its cities were well planned. They had streets, drainage systems, houses, and public baths. This shows that people there understood city planning and cleanliness. The Indus Valley Civilization had trade, crafts, farming, and organized urban life. But many things about it are still mysterious because its writing has not been fully understood. This makes it one of the most fascinating ancient civilizations. In China, early civilization grew near the Yellow River and the Yangtze River. Ancient China developed farming, writing, bronze work, philosophy, government, and powerful dynasties. A dynasty means a family line of rulers. China's history became one of the longest continuous histories in the world. Chinese civilization gave the world many important ideas and inventions later, including paper, printing, compass, and gunpowder. But even in ancient times, China was already building strong traditions, family values, farming systems, and organized rule. As civilizations grew, people created different ways of living. They created religions, they created laws, they created armies, they created markets, they created social classes. Some people became farmers, some became traders, some became soldiers, some became priests, some became rulers, some became writers, builders, and artists. Human society became more complex. But with civilization came both progress and problems. Cities brought safety, trade, and knowledge. But cities also brought inequality, conflict, and war. When people had land, food, and wealth, others wanted to control them. So wars began between cities, kingdoms, and empires. This is an important truth about world history. Humans created amazing things, but humans also fought for power. This pattern appears again and again in history. Creation and destruction, growth and conflict, knowledge and violence, hope and fear. After river civilizations, other powerful cultures rose. In ancient Greece, people developed philosophy, democracy, art, science, literature, and sports. The Greeks asked deep questions. What is truth? What is justice? What is the best way to live? What is knowledge? Greek thinkers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle influenced the world for thousands of years. Greece also gave the world the idea of democracy, especially in Athens. Democracy means people have a voice in government. It was not perfect at that time. Not everyone had equal rights. But the idea became very important for future history. Then came Rome. Rome began as a small city and became one of the greatest empires in history. The Roman Empire controlled large parts of Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Rome became famous for roads, laws, armies, architecture, and government. Roman roads connected different lands. Roman laws influenced many legal systems later. Roman buildings showed great engineering skill. But Rome also shows us another lesson. Even the greatest empires can fall. Powerful societies can become weak because of corruption, conflict, pressure, invasion, and internal problems. This is why history is so useful. It teaches us that nothing stays powerful forever without wisdom, discipline, and balance. Now let us understand why Chapter 1 is so important. This chapter shows the foundation of human history. Early humans learned survival. Fire gave safety. Tools gave power. Farming gave stability. Villages gave community. Cities gave civilization. Writing gave memory. Rivers gave life. Laws gave order. Trade connected people. Religions gave meaning. Empires created power. And ideas shaped the future. Everything we have today began from these early steps. Our homes, our cities, our schools, our governments, our languages, our technology, our farming, our writing, our laws, our culture. All of these things have roots in the ancient world. When you look at a modern city today, remember this. It did not appear suddenly. It began with early humans learning how to survive. It began with someone making a stone tool, someone controlling fire, someone planting seeds, someone building a home, someone creating a village, someone writing symbols on clay, someone building roads, temples, and cities. Human history is not one sudden jump. It is a long journey of small discoveries. And this is a powerful lesson for our own lives too. Big change begins with small steps. A civilization begins with one settlement. A language begins with one word. A book begins with one sentence. A skill begins with one practice. Chapter 2. Religions, empires, trade, and the medieval world. After the ancient world, human history entered a new stage. Civilizations were no longer small and separate. People were traveling more. Empires were growing. Religions were spreading. Trade routes were connecting faraway lands. Ideas were moving from one place to another. The world was slowly becoming more connected. In this chapter, we will understand how religion, empire, trade, and culture shaped the medieval world. The word medieval means the middle period of history. It came after the ancient age and before the modern age. This was a time of kings, castles, warriors, traders, scholars, travelers, and powerful beliefs. One of the biggest forces in this period was religion. Religion gave people meaning. It helped them understand life, death, morality, hope, suffering, and purpose. Different parts of the world followed different faiths and traditions. In South Asia, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism continued to influence people's lives. In the Middle East, Judaism, Christianity, and later Islam became very important. In China, Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism shaped society, family, education, and government. Religion was not only about prayer. It shaped laws. It shaped art. It shaped education. It shaped buildings. It shaped festivals. It shaped people's daily habits. It shaped the way people saw the world. Christianity became very important in Europe. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire, Europe became divided into many kingdoms. There was no single Roman power controlling everything like before. In this time, the Christian church became one of the strongest institutions in Europe. Churches and monasteries became centers of learning. Monks copied books by hand. They preserved knowledge. They taught religion. They helped communities. Religion gave people hope in a difficult world. But it also gave the church great power. Kings wanted the support of the church. People looked to religious leaders for guidance. This made religion deeply connected with politics. In the Middle East, Islam began in the 7th century. The Prophet Muhammad taught the message of Islam in Arabia. After his death, Islam spread quickly across the Middle East, North Africa, Persia, and parts of Europe and Asia. Muslim empires became powerful. They built cities. They created trade networks. They supported learning. They translated old Greek, Persian, and Indian texts. This period became known as the Islamic Golden Age. During the Islamic Golden Age, Cities like Baghdad, Damascus, Cordoba, and Cairo became centers of knowledge. Scholars studied mathematics, medicine, astronomy, philosophy, geography, and literature. They made important contributions to science and learning. For example, algebra developed strongly in the Islamic world. Doctors wrote medical books. Astronomers studied stars and planets. Libraries became places of knowledge. This is important because history is not only about war. History is also about ideas. Books can change the world. Knowledge can travel across borders. One civilization can preserve and improve the knowledge of another civilization. Then that knowledge can move forward again. This is how human progress works. No civilization grows alone. People learn from one another. While the Islamic world was growing, Europe had many kingdoms. This was the age of feudalism. Feudalism was a system where land was very important. Kings gave land to nobles. Nobles gave protection to people. Knights fought in wars. Peasants worked on the land. Life was difficult for ordinary people. Most people were farmers. They lived in villages. They worked hard. They had few rights. They depended on landowners for protection. There were castles, kings, queens, knights, and wars. This is the world many people imagine when they hear medieval Europe. But medieval Europe was not only dark and poor. Over time, towns grew, trade increased, universities began, art and architecture developed. Gothic cathedrals were built. People slowly began to learn, travel, and exchange ideas more widely. In Asia, China became one of the most advanced civilizations of the medieval world. Chinese dynasties created strong governments, beautiful art, advanced farming, and great inventions. China gave the world paper, printing, the compass, and gunpowder. These inventions changed history. Paper helped writing and education grow. Printing helped spread books and knowledge. The compass helped sailors travel across seas. Gunpowder later changed warfare across the world. China also had powerful cities, trade routes, and a deep respect for education. The government used exams to choose officials. This meant that learning could help a person rise in society. This idea was very important. It showed that knowledge could become a path to power. India also remained a major center of civilization. There were many kingdoms, languages, religions, and cultures. India was known for trade, mathematics, temples, philosophy, literature, and education. Indian goods like spices, cotton, textiles, and precious stones were famous. Traders from many parts of the world came to India. India was connected to the Middle East, Southeast Asia, Africa, and Europe through trade. In Southeast Asia, Indian and Chinese influence mixed with local cultures. Powerful kingdoms and empires developed. Temples, trade ports, and cultural centers grew. One famous example is the Khmer Empire in Cambodia, which built Angkor Wat. Angkor Wat is one of the greatest temple complexes in the world. It shows the power of faith, art, engineering, and royal ambition. In Africa, powerful kingdoms also rose. Many people wrongly think Africa had no great history before modern times. That is false. Africa had rich and powerful civilizations. In West Africa, the Ghana, Mali, and Songhai empires became famous because of gold, trade, and learning. The Mali Empire became especially important under Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa was one of the richest rulers in history. He supported trade, learning, and Islamic scholarship. The city of Timbuktu became a center of education and books. Scholars studied religion, law, mathematics, and literature there. This shows us another important truth. Knowledge was not only in Europe. Knowledge was not only in one place. Learning existed across the world, in Africa, in Asia, in the Middle East, in India, in China, in Europe. Every region had its own achievements. Trade was one of the most powerful forces of the medieval world. Trade connected people. It moved goods. It moved ideas. It moved religions. It moved inventions. It moved languages. It moved stories. One of the most famous trade routes was the Silk Road. The Silk Road was not one single road. It was a network of routes connecting China, Central Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. Traders carried silk, spices, tea, paper, glass, horses, gold, and many other goods. But trade routes carried more than products. They carried knowledge. They carried beliefs. They carried technologies. They carried art styles. They carried diseases, too. This is very important. Connection can bring progress, but it can also bring danger. One of the deadliest events in world history was the Black Death. The Black Death was a terrible plague that spread in the 14th century. It killed millions of people in Europe, Asia, and North Africa. Whole towns suffered. Families were destroyed. People were terrified because they did not understand disease the way we understand it today. The Black Death changed society. There were fewer workers. Labor became more valuable. Some old social systems became weaker. People started questioning life, religion, power, and society in new ways. This shows that disease can also change history, not only kings and wars. A tiny bacteria can change the direction of the world. During the medieval world, there were also major conflicts between religions and empires. One famous example is the Crusades. The Crusades were wars between Christian European powers and Muslim powers, mainly connected to control of holy lands in the Middle East. These wars caused violence, suffering, and deep conflict. But they also increased contact between Europe and the Middle East. Europeans came into contact with new goods, new knowledge, and new ideas. Again, history is complicated. Conflict can destroy, but contact can also bring exchange. In the Americas, before Europeans arrived, great civilizations already existed. The Maya developed cities, writing, mathematics, calendars, and astronomy. The Aztec Empire grew in Mexico. The Inca Empire grew in South America. These civilizations built temples, roads, cities, farming systems, and powerful states. They had their own knowledge, religion, social systems, and political power. This is important to remember. The world was not waiting for Europe to arrive. Many parts of the world already had advanced cultures and histories. By the end of the medieval period, the world was more connected than before. Religions had spread across continents. Empires had risen and fallen. Trade routes had connected distant lands. Cities had grown. Knowledge had traveled. But a new age was coming. Europe was about to change deeply. New technologies, new ideas, and new ambitions were rising. Sailors would soon cross oceans. Empires would become global. Trade would become larger. Colonization would change the lives of millions. Science would challenge old beliefs. Revolutions would question kings. Factories would change work forever. The medieval world was ending, and the modern world was beginning. Chapter 3. Exploration, colonization, revolutions, and the modern world begins. After the medieval period, world history entered a new and dramatic age. This was the age of exploration, colonization, science, revolutions, and industry. The world became more connected than ever before. But this connection came with both progress and pain. It brought new knowledge, new trade, new inventions, new ideas. But it also brought violence, slavery, exploitation, disease, and colonization. This chapter is very important because it explains how the modern world began. It explains why some countries became very powerful. It explains how global trade developed. It explains how science changed human thinking. It explains how revolutions changed politics. And it explains how machines changed human life forever. Let us begin with exploration. In the 1400s and 1500s, European sailors began traveling across oceans. They wanted new trade routes. They wanted spices, gold, land, and power. They wanted to reach Asia by sea. At that time, spices were extremely valuable. Pepper, cloves, cinnamon, and other spices were used for food, medicine, and trade. European powers wanted direct access to these goods. Portugal and Spain became leaders in ocean exploration. Portuguese sailors traveled around Africa and reached India by sea. Vasco da Gama reached India in 1498. This opened a new sea route between Europe and Asia. Spain supported Christopher Columbus, who sailed west across the Atlantic in 1492. He reached the Americas, although he believed he had reached Asia. This journey changed world history forever. Europe, Africa, and the Americas became connected in a new way. But this connection was not equal. For native peoples in the Americas, European arrival brought disaster. Europeans brought diseases like smallpox. Native populations had no immunity to these diseases. Millions died. European powers also used violence, conquest, and forced labor. The Aztec and Inca empires were defeated by Spanish forces. Gold and silver were taken. Land was controlled. People were converted, exploited, and ruled. This was the beginning of European colonization in the Americas. Colonization means one country controls another land and its people for power, wealth, and resources. Colonization became one of the biggest forces in modern history. European powers like Spain, Portugal, Britain, France, and the Netherlands built overseas empires. They controlled lands in the Americas, Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean. They took raw materials. They controlled trade. They built plantations. They spread their languages, religions, laws, and political systems. But colonization also caused deep suffering. Many local cultures were damaged. People lost land. Many were forced to work. Many were treated unfairly. One of the darkest parts of this age was the transatlantic slave trade. Millions of African people were captured, sold, and transported across the Atlantic Ocean. They were forced to work on plantations in the Americas. They were treated as property, not human beings. This was one of the greatest tragedies in world history. The slave trade created wealth for European empires and plantation owners, but it created pain, trauma, and injustice for generations. This is why history must be told honestly. We must talk about discoveries and inventions, but we must also talk about suffering and injustice. World history is not only about winners. It is also about people who were oppressed, silenced, and forced to suffer. At the same time, global trade expanded. Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Americas became connected through trade routes. Goods moved across oceans. Sugar, tobacco, cotton, silver, spices, tea, and textiles became part of global business. This created a world economy. But again, it was not equal. Some countries gained power. Others were controlled. Some people became rich. Others were forced into labor. This pattern shaped the modern world. While exploration and colonization were changing the world, another revolution was happening in human thinking: the scientific revolution. Before this period, many people explained the world mainly through religion, tradition, and old authorities. But scientists began asking questions based on observation, experiments, and evidence. They wanted to understand nature through reason. Thinkers like Nicholas Copernicus, Galileo Galilei, Johannes Kepler, Isaac Newton, and others changed how people understood the universe. Copernicus argued that Earth was not the center of the universe. Galileo used a telescope and observed the sky. Newton explained laws of motion and gravity. Science gave humans a new way to understand the world. It said, "Do not only believe because someone says something. Observe, test, question, think, find evidence." This changed history. Science improved navigation, medicine, engineering, technology, and education. It also changed the human mindset. People began believing that the world could be studied, understood, and improved. Then came the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment was a period when thinkers talked about reason, freedom, rights, government, equality, and human progress. People began asking, should kings have unlimited power? Do people have natural rights? What is freedom? What is justice? Can society be improved? Thinkers like John Locke, Montesquieu, Voltaire, Rousseau, and others influenced political ideas. Their ideas helped inspire revolutions. One major revolution was the American Revolution. The 13 British colonies in North America wanted independence from Britain. They argued that people should not be ruled without representation. In 1776, they declared independence. After war, the United States became a new nation. The American Revolution showed that colonies could challenge empire and create a new government. Another major revolution was the French Revolution. Before the Revolution, France had deep inequality. The king and nobles had great privilege. Many ordinary people were poor and angry. In 1789, the revolution began. People demanded liberty, equality, and fraternity. The French Revolution changed France and inspired movements across the world. But it also became violent. There were executions, fear, and political chaos. This shows that revolutions can bring hope, but also danger. They can destroy old systems, but building a new system is not easy. Still, the ideas of freedom, citizenship, rights, and equality became powerful in world history. The modern age also brought the Industrial Revolution. This was one of the biggest changes humans ever experienced. Before the Industrial Revolution, most people worked in farming or small crafts. Goods were made by hand. Life moved slowly. But from the 18th century, machines began changing production. The Industrial Revolution began in Britain and later spread to Europe, America, and other parts of the world. Factories were built. Steam engines powered machines. Textile production increased. Iron and coal became very important. Railways changed transportation. Cities grew quickly. People moved from villages to cities for work. The Industrial Revolution created modern industry. It made production faster. It made goods cheaper. It created new jobs. It helped technology grow. But it also created problems. Factory work was often difficult and dangerous. Workers had long hours. Children also worked in factories. Cities became crowded and polluted. Rich factory owners became wealthier, while many workers lived in poor conditions. This led to new social movements. Workers demanded rights. People asked for better working conditions. Thinkers criticized inequality. New political ideas appeared, including socialism, liberalism, nationalism, and later communism. Nationalism became especially powerful. Nationalism means strong loyalty to one's nation or people. It helped unite some countries. For example, Italy and Germany became unified nations in the 19th century. But nationalism could also create conflict. When people believed their nation was superior, tension increased. Competition between empires became stronger. Industrial power, nationalism, colonization, and military competition slowly created a dangerous world. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, European empires controlled large parts of Africa and Asia. This period is often called the Age of Imperialism. Imperialism means powerful countries controlling weaker lands for resources, markets, and strategic power. Africa was divided by European powers during the scramble for Africa. Many African societies were controlled without their consent. In Asia, European powers controlled important territories and trade. India came under British rule. Parts of Southeast Asia were controlled by France, Britain, and the Netherlands. China faced pressure from foreign powers. Japan, however, modernized quickly during the Meiji period and became a powerful nation. This shows another important truth. The modern world was not created equally for everyone. Some countries industrialized and gained power. Others were colonized and exploited. The effects of this history are still visible today. Languages, borders, economies, political systems, and global inequalities are connected to this period. Chapter 3 teaches us that the modern world began through a mix of discovery, ambition, science, violence, ideas, machines, and resistance. Exploration connected continents. Colonization created global empires. The slave trade caused deep human suffering. Science changed human thinking. The Enlightenment created new political ideas. Revolutions challenged kings and empires. The Industrial Revolution changed work, cities, and technology. Imperialism reshaped the world map. This chapter is important because it explains many things we still see today. Why English, Spanish, French, and Portuguese are spoken in many countries. Why some countries became rich and powerful earlier. Why many borders were drawn by colonial powers. Why ideas like freedom, democracy, equality, and rights became so important. Why modern industry changed human life. And why the modern world carries both progress and pain. History is not simple. It is full of light and darkness. Humans created science, machines, books, laws, and ideas of freedom. But humans also created slavery, colonization, exploitation, and war. This is why we must learn history with honesty. Not only to feel proud, not only to feel sad, but to understand. Chapter 4. World Wars, Cold War, Technology, Globalization, and Today's World. By the beginning of the 20th century, the world had changed deeply. Countries were more connected than ever before. Industries were growing. Cities were expanding. Empires were powerful. Science was advancing. Machines were becoming stronger. But under all this progress, there was also tension. Powerful countries were competing with each other. They wanted more land, more resources, more markets, more military power, more respect. Europe especially became full of pressure. Countries formed alliances. They built armies. They built weapons. They became suspicious of one another. Nationalism was also growing. Many people believed their country was superior. They were ready to fight for national pride. The world looked modern, but it was also dangerous. Then, in 1914, One event started a fire that spread across the world. The First World War began. World War I was one of the deadliest wars in history. Many countries joined the war. Soldiers fought in trenches. Trenches were long, deep holes in the ground where soldiers lived, waited, and fought. Life in the trenches was terrible. There was mud, cold, disease, fear, hunger, explosions, and death everywhere. New weapons made the war even more destructive. Machine guns, tanks, poison gas, airplanes, heavy artillery. Human beings had created powerful technology, but now that technology was being used to destroy human beings. This is one of the sad lessons of history. Technology can build the world. But if humans use it without wisdom, it can also destroy the world. World War I ended in 1918. Millions of people had died. Countries were broken. Families were destroyed. The old empires became weak or disappeared. The Ottoman Empire, Austro-Hungarian Empire, German Empire, and Russian Empire changed or collapsed. After the war, leaders wanted peace. They created the League of Nations to stop future wars. But the peace was not strong enough. Germany was punished heavily by the Treaty of Versailles. Many Germans felt angry and humiliated. Economic problems became worse. Then came the Great Depression in 1929. The Great Depression was a huge economic crisis. People lost jobs. Businesses failed. Families suffered. Many people became desperate. In this environment of anger, fear, and economic pain, dangerous leaders rose. One of them was Adolf Hitler in Germany. He promised strength. He promised national pride. He blamed others for Germany's problems. He spread hate. He built a dictatorship. A dictatorship means one person or one group controls the country with great power and little freedom for people. Hitler and the Nazi Party used propaganda, fear, racism, and violence. They wanted to expand Germany's power. Soon, the world moved toward another war. In 1939, World War II began. World War II was even more destructive than World War I. It involved Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Pacific. Germany attacked many countries in Europe. Japan expanded in Asia and the Pacific. Italy also joined the Axis powers. Against them were the Allied powers, including Britain, the Soviet Union, China, the United States, and others. World War II was not only a war between armies. It was also a war that hurt ordinary people deeply. Cities were bombed. Families were separated. Millions became refugees. Food became limited. Fear became part of daily life. One of the darkest crimes in history happened during this time: the Holocaust. The Nazis murdered around 6 million Jewish people. They also killed many others, including disabled people, Roma people, political opponents, and different groups they considered enemies. The Holocaust shows how dangerous hate can become when it is supported by power, propaganda, and silence. This is why history is important. It teaches us to recognize hate early. It teaches us not to ignore injustice. It teaches us that human dignity must be protected. The war continued for years. In 1945, Germany was defeated. In the same year, the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan. The destruction was terrible. Many people died immediately. Many others suffered later from burns, radiation, and sickness. Japan surrendered. World War II ended in 1945, but the world was shocked. Humans had seen the power of total war. They had seen genocide. They had seen atomic weapons. They had seen how far destruction could go. After World War II, the world wanted to avoid another global war. The United Nations was created in 1945. Its goal was to support peace, cooperation, human rights, and international dialogue. But peace was not simple. Soon, two powerful countries became rivals, the United States and the Soviet Union. This rivalry became known as the Cold War. It was called cold because the United States and the Soviet Union did not fight each other directly in one big war. But they competed in many ways. They competed in politics, military power, nuclear weapons, space exploration, technology, influence over other countries. The United States supported capitalism and democracy. The Soviet Union supported communism and one-party rule. The world became divided into different sides. Many countries felt pressure to choose one side. There were wars and conflicts connected to the Cold War, including the Korean War and the Vietnam War. There were also dangerous moments when people feared nuclear war. The world had entered the nuclear age. For the first time, humans had weapons powerful enough to destroy entire cities in seconds. This created fear, but also caution. Leaders understood that another world war could destroy humanity. During the Cold War, another major event happened. Colonized countries began fighting for independence. After World War II, European empires became weaker. People in Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and the Caribbean wanted freedom. They did not want to be ruled by foreign powers anymore. India became independent in 1947. Many African countries became independent in the 1950s and 1960s. Indonesia, Vietnam, Ghana, Kenya, Algeria, and many others struggled for freedom in different ways. Some independence movements were peaceful, some were violent. Some countries gained freedom through negotiation. Others gained freedom after long wars. Decolonization changed the world map. New nations were born. But independence did not solve every problem immediately. Many new countries faced poverty, weak institutions, ethnic tensions, border problems, and the lasting effects of colonial rule. This is another lesson of history. Freedom is powerful, but building a strong, fair, and peaceful nation takes time. During the second half of the 20th century, science and technology moved very fast. The space race became one of the biggest symbols of the Cold War. The Soviet Union sent the first satellite Sputnik into space in 1957. Later, in 1969, the United States landed humans on the moon. This was a huge moment in human history. For thousands of years, humans had looked at the moon from Earth. Now, a human being walked on it. This shows the power of curiosity, science, teamwork, and imagination. Technology also changed daily life. Television became common. Cars became more common. Air travel became faster. Medicine improved. Vaccines saved lives. Computers were developed. At first, computers were large and expensive. Later, they became smaller and more powerful. Then personal computers entered homes, schools, and offices. The internet changed everything again. Before the internet, information moved slowly. People needed books, newspapers, television, letters, or libraries. But the internet connected the world in a new way. People could communicate quickly. Information could travel instantly. Businesses could work globally. Students could learn from anywhere. Families could talk across countries. The internet became one of the greatest communication tools in human history. Then came smartphones. A small device in the hand became more powerful than old giant computers. People could call, message, learn, record videos, take photos, read books, watch news, study English, and connect with the world. This changed human life deeply. Today, many people carry the world in their pocket. But technology also brought new problems. Too much screen time, online addiction, fake news, cybercrime, privacy issues, comparison on social media, mental stress. Technology gave humans more power, but also more responsibility. Again, history teaches the same lesson. Every powerful tool needs wisdom. The late 20th century and early 21st century also brought globalization. Globalization means the world became more connected through trade, travel, technology, culture, business, and communication. Products are made in one country and sold in another. People work with international companies. Students study online. Movies, music, fashion, and food travel across borders. One event in one country can affect the whole world. Globalization created opportunities. It helped trade grow. It helped cultures connect. It helped people learn from each other. But globalization also created challenges. Jobs changed. Local cultures felt pressure. Economic inequality continued. Rich and poor countries did not benefit equally. Environmental problems became global. Climate change became one of the biggest challenges of our time. For centuries, humans used coal, oil, gas, forests, rivers, and land for growth. Industries became powerful. Cities became large. Transportation became faster. But the planet also suffered. Air pollution increased. Forests were cut. Oceans became polluted. Temperatures rose. Extreme weather became a serious concern. Climate change teaches us that human history is not separate from nature. We live on Earth. If we damage the planet, we damage our own future. Today, the world faces many challenges. Climate change, war, inequality, poverty, migration, political conflict, technology risks, artificial intelligence, misinformation, health crises, mental stress. But the world also has hope. More people have access to education than before. Science is stronger than before. Medicine is better than before. Communication is faster than before. Human rights ideas are more powerful than before. People across the world can raise their voices. People can learn skills from anywhere. People can connect across cultures. People can create change. This is the modern world, full of problems, full of possibilities, full of danger, full of hope. If we look at the whole journey of world history, it is amazing. Humans began as small groups trying to survive in nature. They made tools. They discovered fire. They learned farming. They built villages. They created cities. They developed writing. They formed civilizations. They built religions, empires, trade routes, and cultures. They explored oceans. They created science. They started revolutions. They built machines. They fought world wars. They entered the nuclear age. They went to space. They created computers, the internet, smartphones, and artificial intelligence. This is a huge journey. From stone tools to space rockets, from cave paintings to digital screens, from small tribes to a connected global world. But the biggest question is not only, what did humans create? The biggest question is, what will humans do next? Because history is not finished. We are living inside history right now. Every generation receives the world from the past and gives it to the future. Now, it is our responsibility. We must learn from the mistakes of history. We must not repeat hatred. We must not repeat blind violence. We must not repeat injustice. We must not destroy the earth for short-term gain. We must use knowledge with wisdom, power with responsibility, technology with humanity, freedom with respect, progress with peace. The history of the world teaches us that humans are capable of both greatness and destruction. We can build hospitals, schools, books, art, music, science, and technology. But we can also create war, slavery, hatred, and suffering. So the future depends on what we choose. If we choose greed, the world becomes dangerous. If we choose wisdom, the world becomes better. If we choose hate, history repeats its darkest chapters. If we choose understanding, history can move toward peace. This chapter is important for English learners too. Because when you learn world history in English, you are not only learning facts, you are learning powerful words. You are learning how to explain big ideas. You are learning how to connect past, present, and future. You are learning how to think deeply in English. So do not only listen. Repeat the sentences. Speak about history in your own words. Try to explain one event. Try to summarize one chapter. Try to say, world history is the story of human survival, progress, mistakes, and change. This one sentence is simple but powerful. The history of the world is not just the story of the past. It is the story of how we became who we are today. It teaches us where cities came from, where governments came from, where religions spread, where empires rose, where wars began, where freedom movements started, where technology changed life, and why today's world is so connected. History teaches us that nothing appears suddenly. Everything has roots. Every country has a story. Every culture has a journey. Every invention has a beginning. Every problem has a background. And every future is shaped by present choices. So keep learning history, not only to remember dates, but to understand humanity, to understand mistakes, to understand progress, to understand the world, and to understand yourself. Because when you learn history, you learn one powerful truth. Human beings are always changing. We fall, we rise, we fight, we build, we destroy, we learn, we begin again. And just like humanity, you can also grow. You can start small. You can learn slowly. You can improve your English step by step. You can build confidence through daily practice. You can become better than yesterday. History is proof that small beginnings can create great change. So keep learning, keep questioning, keep practicing English. And if this video helped you understand the history of the world, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and continue this journey of knowledge and English with me.